we're going to move on to speak with Marcelo Moyano and Richard Smrt from StreamVoodoo. Gentlemen, good to see you.
Hello.
Hello. If you were watching yesterday, you saw my keynote interview with Deadmau5, who not only is a StreamVoodoo user, but he is an equity partner in the company, right?
Correct. Yep.
So we didn't talk much about StreamVoodoo in that keynote interview, and that was intentional. We didn't want it to be, that was not a sponsored keynote, and we appreciate your team connecting us with Deadmau5 and making that happen. But this is a great opportunity for you to show off a little bit more about what StreamVoodoo actually is, what it does, and how it works. And if I am correct, I think you wanted to start out, Marcelo, by giving people a chance to test it out for themselves, and that's by putting a QR code on the screen. So I'm going to spotlight your video and make it big for everyone. So if you want to hold up that QR code.
Sure, let's go. So if you scan this QR code, right, and we will put the link in the chat as well. So you can click on it and, oh, Manchester City just scored a goal. So, and you just paste that. I mean, just click on it and open it. And you should
it's also in the chat. So I'll
just put it in the chat.
Take you off spotlight. So now that people, hopefully some of our audience have already downloaded that, but could you talk a little bit about exactly what StreamVoodoo is?
Yeah, well, that's what it is, right? It's simplified. It's a simplified process to send live video feeds, in this case from my Mac or any PC, if you will, in just one click. And what I just show is like, if people open that QR code, it has a link with our magic links embedded on it. And you can see my camera live in this moment with ultra low latency and studio quality sound. So what we wanted to make was, after the pandemic hit, we saw that what happens when everybody's using Zoom and it's fine for everything, but sometimes people really needs more quality and needs more, ease of use in the daily workflows. So we came up with this solution because we thought, hey, the quality is here. We know that we can work things out really well with the newest Macs. And we were thinking about, okay, how Apple will do this, right? Because it seems like when you go out from Zoom or Teams or these video conferencing apps, everything gets complicated for people, right? And it's a thing. So we wanted to simplify that. And I think we're doing it, man, really, really well. The StreamVoodoo has a couple of apps now created. And the thing is, like, we're not just an app. This is a technology that we created. And well, Deadmau5 saw it and he just really liked it. And he just became part of the company as well, because we really appreciate the idea of pushing quality and not having to use the classic broadcast setups and extra hardware and extra switchers and extra encoders and things like that. You just use your Mac in this case, and we're really proud of the results. Yeah.
And how is StreamVoodoo different from other apps that are available on the market today?
Well, ideally, I think the simplicity that StreamVoodoo has is one of the key factors. We were seeing people struggling to send a video feed with high quality, like video editors, for example, or people that really works in the industry. How do they send that out without major issues? And like you saw there, for me to send that live feed, it's just one click. And we were thinking about that. We are seeing that major difference in quality and latency, and of course, privacy, because that link that I sent you is just a private link. Of course, if you share it on social media, it's going to be a public one. But the goal here is to let people understand that live streaming doesn't have to be complex, doesn't have to be hard to use, and the latency is ultra low. We're talking about 60 milliseconds here from San Francisco to New York. We measure it. So latency, privacy, and quality are key factors here. And yeah, we're really changing the game in terms of this simplicity, right?
You mentioned ultra low latency, 60 milliseconds. We had a panel on latency earlier, and we had a session on live streaming at scale just after that. And in both cases, they really emphasized that, people shouldn't just pursue low latency or ultra low latency for its own sake, right? There needs to be
Right.
a business case for it. What are you finding is the business case for this ultra low latency? What sort of applications are you seeing StreamVoodoo being used for?
Yeah, well, in this case, there are many use cases that are being actually created these days, and it's pretty insane for me to think about that. But the goal is, if you really, the latency comes for this connection that we feel. This is the stream media connect, right? So
Mhm.
how do we connect to each other? And that's something that I was thinking really clearly. And the latency is what makes you feel like you're next to the person that you're talking to, right? And everybody uses this for like a face cam, right? Like you talk like that, or you share your screen, and you're pretty much doing that in the remote workflows that we see happening. But if you don't care about the latency, then you get this fatigue after some time. And of course, it has to do with your camera and your light. I think I have one of a pretty decent setup here. But the goal here is if you get a better camera and a better sound, you get there too. But usually these apps that I'm seeing using, people that are using it, the latency is not there. And I think, Richard will be able to talk a little bit more about that if we want to. But
Yeah.
we want the ultra low latency to be really the key factor. But the thing is, like, some people, or we see that once those panelists were talking about latency, they say, hey, we need to just accept that it's low quality. And we're here to say, we're here to say that it's not about that. We can do incredible low latency with incredible quality with just a regular connection from my house. I don't have a fiber connection here like I'm pulling off or anything. I don't have a truck outside of my house with cables and stuff. I do have cables though, because I'm testing some other
Mhm.
things, but you get the point. Like the latency is the key factor. Video editors are using this to send their timelines live from their Macs, right, to their clients, just like a magic link like you see where you're watching this camera live here coming from my house. People will share their timelines and see the video editing process live. People are using this for interviews. You used it, right, with Edmonds and me,
Mhm.
and that was a web version. It was a seamless process.
Right.
So we create these studios in the cloud and make it super easy for people to really produce content on the fly. And this is a new game, right? Production people, we have companies that are shooting commercials in different places, and not all the producers can fly in, and they don't like to watch this feeds. They did it before in Zoom, and that's fine, but they want to see the quality that we can send. So these production companies are sending magic links out, and people are watching that live. It's much more convenient and saving time and money, of course.
Well,
And
there's a
esports is one that comes to mind.
Oh, esports, yeah.
Just like a specific example, the connection is the most important. And we saw that over the pandemic, that our ability to continue producing high quality video and productions was important. But, the limitation was, if you wanted to go really low latency, the quality wasn't always there. And look at Zoom, for example. I mean, um, there's a limit to the bit rate and the quality that you can achieve. So how can we do that at a much higher quality? In esports, you also have commentators and talking heads, if you will, but then you also have gameplay, and those feeds may be coming from all over the world. And in the case of that particular genre, they require very high quality bit rates, for gameplay. There could be a lot of movement, so we now have this challenge where you want to reduce latency, but you want to keep the quality because you have high movement scenarios, which is far different from just a talking head.
Right.
And businesses too will talk a lot about, okay, do we need low latency, or do we want to go with more traditional transports that have more latency but maybe higher quality? And one of the things you got to remember between that dichotomy, low latency versus higher quality, higher latency transports, is people always want lower latency. And so what do we have to do in order to get our multiple feeds synced together? What do you have to do to get those feeds synced? And you see these technologies trying to sync video using time codes and using various technologies. But if you bring the latency down, you don't have to do a lot of that stuff anymore. Everything is just kind of in sync. And we've seen that with StreamVoodoo, where, if you look at the lowest latency technologies out there, Voodoo will be in sync with those. So it also allows us to sync videos for those critical productions where you have lots of feeds together, and you need them to be in sync.
Right.
What about scale? Latency, quality, and then of course scale. You mentioned earlier that that link that you sent us, or that you made available to the audience, that's public. It can be shared with anybody. I'd love to think that our Streaming Media Connect is suddenly going to go viral and, we'll have 100,000 viewers descend on it. Probably not going to happen, but there may be events for which that is the case. How do you deal with those scaling issues while maintaining the latency and the quality that you've promised?
Well, what we do here right now is just use a little example of what is possible, right? We do have the capacity to scale. The idea was that once deadmau5 saw this, the first question that he asked us was, can you guys scale? and our answer was yes, of course. And we do it by ourselves in terms of like the infrastructure. There's something to point here that we are not using traditional like AWS and all these other things that everybody's thinking like, oh, the cloud has to be AWS. It doesn't have to. We do have our other infrastructure with well-known companies that are, of course, behind this, but we're not, it's just a plugin. We're not just an app or like an API that we're pulling from somewhere. We're creating this by ourselves. And the point is, the scale is really up to what the capacity of the engineering team that we do have, which is, mainly Richard Smrt dealing with more than 12 years, Richard, of experience in live streaming servers and dealing with this like for a long time. And we get to know the technology very well. So scale is not an issue for us. And if you want to, like deadmau5 did a show all of a sudden when 6,000 people joined, and it was really low latency, high quality streaming, 1080p, 60 frames a second. And the guys who are technically tech savvy, they will understand what I'm talking about. And I just watch it on my Apple TV in the comfort of my home. And it was really nice because I didn't have to do anything. But that's kind of like a way for us that, yeah, there are ways in the cloud that we can mix technologies. Like Richard said, not everybody needs ultra low latency all the time. You can really bring everything to the cloud and just mix and match things and stream out to other points in the world. We go through firewalls, we go through different places. China, for example, we don't have any issues with streaming to China, but this is more like on the Richard's side. And Richard, if you want to add a note or not about that, I would be glad.
Sure. I mean, yeah, talking about scale, everybody asks the question about scale, and some of the companies that we've talked to, it's the first question they ask, or they'll be very specific and they'll say, can you scale to 1 million
Right.
concurrent viewers? And, they ask questions like this. And I think that, we know the answer to that question. When it comes to low latency, scaling is a little bit different because if you want to, achieve those sub-second latencies in just a few dozen milliseconds or 100 or 2 milliseconds, then you're not going to use the traditional HLS stack, the traditional CDN. So it is different. And we found that we have to scale differently, both vertically and horizontally, to reach those higher numbers. But the good news is, if you don't want to scale low latency, or there's an application where the low latency is not so important, and you want to use a traditional stack like HLS, it's 2023. We can literally, we have full control to build that stack however we like, whether it's low latency, HLS, or other custom outputs that a client or a video team may need, so that they can ingest the stream into their systems and turn it around in their studio.
Yeah.
We've mentioned deadmau5 a couple of times already, but someone else who has embraced or at least endorsed your platform is Alex Lindsay, and Alex Lindsay was on a session yesterday as well. He's going to be on one tomorrow, and it's funny. I joked that when I first came to the StreamVoodoo website, I was almost more impressed by seeing Alex Lindsay there than I was deadmau5, right? Because when it comes to the live streaming and live production industries, there are a few names that are more respected than his. How did you end up working with him, as well as deadmau5, and what do you think are what are they saying they see in StreamVoodoo? that they're not seeing anywhere else.
For sure. Well, yeah, the thing with Alex Lindsay, he's been doing live stream events and like remote production and video production for quite a while, more than 3,000 events. It's really crazy to think about it. But some people actually reach out to us on our website because they saw the press release for deadmau5. So when he joined the company, it was like a consequence for that. And then, yeah, he reached out and told me about Alex Lindsay, and he was doing producing this office hours show every day, talking about production and things like this. But they really care about quality and latency. So that was something that Alex was very into it. And I just reached out and he replied to me, and then we start talking. And he says, "Hey, let's have a conversation every week." And here's the thing: we talked about creating the Mac app once I spoke with him, because he says we really want to think about this as how Apple will create something, right? In terms of the simplicity, right? And how do we make things seamless? And of course, he's in Mac Break weekly, every week, and been for a decade talking about Mac and apps and how Apple is pushing the envelope. So he thought that, if we can do that, then we will change the broadcasting industry for good. And we did. So we started talking with him, and we saw a list of requirements that we already have them, most of them in our head. So it was a good thing. And for him to really check this quality the moment that I show him the magic link, it's pretty remarkable. Alex is a person that is really taking care of everything about the shows and the quality, but like you said, from behind the cameras, right? Like the folks that are there working in production and what needs to be done. And we went through those specs, and we're really proud of that. And yeah, Alex Lindsay is sure part of this process in terms of the specs, and we're really nailing it down. Yeah, and deadmau5, well, the same thing, but before Alex, he was very impressed by the latency. Of course, he was very impressed that we show up, and it was a very fun thing. I was watching Joshua Davis, which is another artist. He does graphics for his cubes and the shows that deadmau5 puts live. And I'm a fan, right? Like I like deadmau5 music, but besides that, I saw him on Instagram, and I just texted him that he should try StreamVoodoo because he was fighting with OBS, and we integrate with OBS, of course, very simple and very seamless. But yeah, we started the conversation like that. And then when he saw this, he said, "Hey, we need to show this to Joel. deadmau5 has to do it." And deadmau5 was about to cancel a show that he was going to be doing live from his house. And we show up, and within 5 minutes, we integrated with his system. And he was waiting for 5 months for other companies to bring him what he was in the need for. And the fact that I just passed through that filter in the same day and we started working together, it was pretty remarkable, to be honest. And of course, Richard, that was a good story, Richard, right? When Joel deadmau5 wanted to test us out, and he just tweeted the magic link, right? He has 6 million followers. That was a nice one. And
if you
yeah,
guys know
so,
Joel,
yeah,
maybe you guys watched the interview here on Streaming Media Connect, where you interviewed Joel. And if you get to know his personality, one of the things he likes to do, a just really short story, for all of the streaming companies that he had tried before StreamVoodoo, he has a little test for them. And Joel, if you've never heard of deadmau5, he has a lot of followers on social media. And what do you think is going to happen when someone like him tweets out a link, to join a stream, or a link to click on? And for his following, he has so many people. So it's kind of for him a little benchmark where, when he's working with a company, he will paste a link on his social media, and everyone will, click it, and you get the, what they call the thundering herd to the platform. And so he's no stranger to breaking people's platforms when he sends out that link. So I'll let Marcelo say a little bit more, but Joel, one of the first things he did when testing us out was he wanted to surprise us a little bit by posting a link.
yeah. So what he did was just posting a link and saying, "Okay, how many people can we support?" Right? And then all of a sudden 200, 300, and 400 people join in, like the magic link. "Hey, what's going on?" Right? And they saw the video that I just shared, right? Like the same link that you saw with the QR code that we sent. Of course, it was his camera and his audio. And yeah, everything starts like, okay, scramble a little bit. And just Richard went to the terminal, just run some commands and scale the servers up. We put what we call the Lambo server line, online, and it was instant, like super badass. And that's when Joel says, okay, this is ready for prime time. Let's go and use it. And we are really proud of that because, we don't rely on anybody else's tech to say, hey, can we scale this? Can we do this? It's just the expertise that we have. And I think that that's a great combo, right? Because Joel has a lot of experience. You told him in the interview, his first live stream was like, what, 13 years ago?
Yeah.
So he's been in the industry for quite a while and he knows his craft. He knows how to do everything. So we really got a really good symbiotic relationship there. And yeah, that's how we really enjoyed it. And from there on, like if Deadmau says, yes, you are the man, well, then we just go and face anybody and talk to anyone, different companies, different people, of course, like I mentioned before. And it's a great starting point for us. We're trying to help here. We're trying to add these tools to anybody that needs to use them, and without breaking the bank, which is another factor.
Right. Well, great. Richard, Marcelo, thank you so much. I just pasted the link to the StreamVoodoo site, although people can probably figure it out in the chat if people want to learn more. And thanks to Brian from Recurly for the insights into subscription and retention and churn. Going back to the top of the hour, the music that you heard coming in was No Thing on Me by Curtis Mayfield. Matt LeCount got it right, and so he is our winner. And Matt, keep an eye out on your email, and we'll get that gift certificate out to you by sometime later in the week. I see Steve, our producer, has stepped in back in, and so there Matt gets his moment in the sun right there. And thanks again to Signiant for sponsoring all of Streaming Media Connect, and to Recurly and StreamVoodoo for sponsoring this session. We'll be back at 4 p.m. Eastern to talk about the cloud versus on-prem versus hybrid dilemma. See you then.